I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, March 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk Bow, please take the roll.
Commissioner Alsager? Here. Commissioner Bush is absent. Commissioner Perschbacher?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Zhang?
Here.
Vice Mayor Eke?
Here.
And Mayor Wingard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move into proclamations and presentations. And I believe we have a presentation from Mid-Michigan Development Corporation, MMDC, President and CEO Katie Mora on the 2024 annual report. Please step up.
Let me just go ahead and tee her up real quick. So President and CEO of MMDC, Katie Mora, is here with us today to share some of the exciting things that MMDC has been doing over the last year. And with that, I'm very happy to hand it over to her.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Katie.
Annual report and information on the year ahead.
Excellent. Maybe leave one for Liz.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here as always. I know that the opportunity to present the annual report was always something that my predecessor, Jim McBride, looked forward to doing every year. And so I feel very honored to be able to do that now in his stead. So thanks again. As that gets passed along, I want to just again, if I haven't had the chance to introduce myself in this role, or we haven't had a chance to connect yet, I'm really looking forward to being able to do that moving forward. I've been with Middle Michigan Development Corporation now for about 10 years, and just this past few months was asked to step into the president and CEO role. So honored to get to carry on the legacy of Jim McBride, who you'll see on the front cover of our 2024 annual report, as well as a letter in the front, and then a nice note in the back where we were able to even sneak in his Star Wars character in tribute to him, which I know he would have loved. 2024 was a great year for Middle Michigan and for the city of Mount Pleasant. Middle Michigan Development Corporation was able to do a lot of wonderful work in alignment with our strategic plan. And in our 2024 annual report, on that first page, when you open the front cover, you'll see our 2025-2027 strategic plan. This is very much in alignment with what our strategic plan had been previously. We had made the decision one strategic plan ago to add both talent and entrepreneurship to the strategic plan that we had. And so we've continued to keep that, as that has continued to be a very important part of focus for us. So you'll see that in the strategic plan, and then our three main pillars of business retention and growth, business attraction, and community development. On page 3, you'll see our local impact for 2024. And so in 2024, we were serving 4 counties. That included Isabella County, Clare County, Gladwin County, and Osceola County. And during that one-year period and over those 4 counties, we were able to visit with 162 companies and provide 311 assists Assists are what we measure whenever we provide any sort of support or referral for a company. And we saw that in 2024 in particular, we had a lot of support services that we were providing. And that just means that our companies were coming to us with various challenges and roadblocks for us to help them work through, or we were able to provide them with direct connection to some sort of funding resource or partner that we also work with could provide some support to them as well. We had over $33 million in total local capital investments from our companies. We saw 566 local new hires, 73 site submissions. Of those, the CMU Smart Zone, that is always one of our top properties that we get to submit both through the MEDC site selection process, but also when I go and visit with site selectors at events throughout the country with the MEDC, we're able to also highlight that as well as the area in general to site selectors in person as well. And then we also were able to work with our partners and our municipalities to bring in about $8.2 million in grant funding into our region in 2024. So that's just a very quick overview of some of the key metrics that we keep our eyes on. In addition, you'll see some of our regional impact as well. Jim always liked to talk about the four-legged stool, and this is where you'll see some of those elements of our strategic plan, including talent and entrepreneurship. One of the pieces that we don't have in our strategic plan yet, but may consider adding in the near future, is childcare. We've been doing quite a lot of work with childcare, both locally and regionally as well. Middle Michigan was asked to serve as a regional lead for childcare, the Regional Childcare Planning Grant, and we're continuing to do some work as we move into 2025 as well. On page 5, you'll notice maybe one of the newest permanent residents in downtown Mount Pleasant. Middle Michigan purchased a building in downtown. We were really excited to be able to have a permanent place to call home. And you'll see we have a wonderful timeline of MMDC throughout the years that led up to us being in this building. It's not our first time being here, interestingly enough. And actually, when we were setting up shop, we found some old labels in the back closet that still said MMDC, which was really fun to find. And then as you move forward, on page 6, we talk a little bit about an expansion plan that Mid-Michigan College has. This will be particularly beneficial for our advanced manufacturing in the area. And then on page 7 and on page 8, you'll notice that in the City South Industrial Park, we were able to work with a couple of our companies there who had some expansion projects that they got underway in 2024. As you all know, when it comes to economic development, attraction is a part of the process and a part of what we do, but where we really spend a lot of our time is ensuring that our businesses have the tools and resources that they need to stay in the area. And so this is a really good example of 2 businesses that we were able to work with, not only to stay, but to expand, which is always really exciting to be able to be a part of. As you continue on through the annual report, on page 12, we highlighted Life Unplugged opening their downtown flagship store in Mount Pleasant and highlighted a few facts on them. They were also our Business Attraction Award for Isabella County in our last year's annual meeting award ceremony as well. We've continued to emphasize our Coming Home event, which happens here at the Courtyard Marriott. On page 13 and 14, you can see not only our event, which we were able to have 200 participants in this year, but you'll also see our 40 under 40 winners from 2024. This is something that we launched a couple of years ago, and we've had a really fantastic showing, particularly within the city of Mount Pleasant and the surrounding area. But we're excited to be able to not only continue this program, but also I'll be talking a little bit about ways we're going to be expanding that here in 2025 as well. And then on page 15 and 16, you'll see some great programs that the City of Mount Pleasant was able to be a part of, or we were able to highlight in our annual report. The Child Care Coalition has been a really exciting endeavor for me. That's something that I was able to help oversee last year, and we received some regional recognition for that. I'm happy to report we have multiple childcare facilities that are opening. One of them we're working with right now is here in the City of Mount Pleasant, and then we we have another one in Wynn, which will be supportive not only for Wynn, but also for many of our residents who are here in the city as well. Housing has also been another big focus for us, and so you'll see mention of things like the Chill Grant and the My Neighborhood program. We've worked with developers and with individuals across our communities to be able to help support the housing initiatives that they're undertaking, and that's continuing to get bigger and bigger for us. We're working with more and more developers and people interested in launching some housing initiatives every day. And as you continue, I hope you'll read through this and find some stories that are inspiring and encouraging. Our community wins are always a lot of fun. Those are more projects that we aren't necessarily playing an active role in necessarily, but we just like to be able to highlight some of the great things that are happening across our community and our region. As a result of the work that we do, I hope we help to rise all ships. And so as we see these great stories of economic development and impact, it always makes me smile that we get to play just a small role in the work that everyone across our region is doing. And then on page 23, we also highlighted some of our small businesses that we saw open this last year. Again, not a complete list, but just a few that we were able to highlight. And there's our tribute to Jim with his Force Ghost as honor to him and all of the great work that he's been able to do. I've been able over the last couple of months to go and receive acknowledgement of Jim and the work that he's done across the region and the state, and I've been blown away by not only the work that he was recognized for doing here, but also for the work that he had done on a regional and statewide level too. It's been pretty amazing to hear things that I wasn't even aware of, even after working with him for 9 years. And so I hope you all feel very well represented by the work that he did, all of the different committees that he was on and that I'm now on. He was able to talk about how great of a place this was to call home, and this was his home for many years. And then, as always, on page 25, I have our list of sponsors and partners. City of Mount Pleasant, you are one of our partners, and I want to say thank you for your continued support. It's been and is an honor to get to represent economic development for the City of Mount Pleasant, and as a resident here, I particularly love getting to do the work that I do. So thank you for that. That's our annual report. Again, it gets a little bit longer every year, so I tried to just hit a few high points, but feel free to look through that, and then you can always let Aaron know too if you see something that you want to talk about further with me. I'm happy to do that. And then lastly, I wanted to make sure that I presented you all with 2025, the year ahead. So I've been in my new role for a short period of time, but thinking about where do we go from here? And how do we continue to move forward? And so what you have in front of us is broken down a little bit differently than how we sometimes have reported things out, but this is in alignment with how the Michigan Economic Development Corporation outlined their strategic plan. And I really like that people is the top focus for them. And so wanted to kind of kick off our 2025 look ahead with people and then places and projects. And so as you kind of look through some of these bullet points, when it comes to people, we're continuing to really focus in on how do we ensure that people are supported here, have a high quality of life here, and that those who come to visit, come to CMU, however they happen to get to Mount Pleasant, that they want to stay. One way we're doing that is with a grant that we received from the MEDC. The Make My Home pilot program will be launching this year, and that is a pilot program that will allow us to provide some incentives to 10 graduating students at CMU. And through that program, we'll be able to not only have 10 students stay and hopefully put down some roots, but we'll also get to learn a lot from them about what works well, what they like, what we could do differently. So I'm very excited to get that program kicked off. We'll also continue to partner with Mid-Michigan Small Business Development Centers, the CMU New Venture Program, and CMURC to support entrepreneurial growth in our area. We're very big proponents of the New Venture Program. We give out a grant every year to one of the student ventures that looks to stay here, and we're going to continue to do that again. We'll also be launching a talent attraction website in coordination with some of our regional partners. This will allow us to highlight opportunities for those who are looking to make Mount Pleasant their home. We're also partnering with businesses to recruit, attract, and retain high-quality talent across the region. And then we'll be continuing with Coming Home. And then our 40 Under 40, which has now been in place for 2 years. The only complaint we got this year was that we didn't do our own event just for 40 Under 40. And so that's the plan for this year. We'll be doing that as a separate gala in the fall. And then we're also, like I said, playing a really important role in regional childcare initiatives and continuing to do that. And we'll continue to be doing that at a regional level. We're waiting to hear back right now on a grant for kind of the next phase of where that region work goes. Under places, continuing to work with the city of Mount Pleasant, particularly with some of our downtown businesses. That's something, if you've known me, and I know many of you have known me for a while, I had owned a business in downtown Mount Pleasant, and so my heart is always with downtown, and so I'm very excited to get to be able to do that. We've been taking things on as well, such as working with businesses who are applying for Oprah or who are working through permit processes, and so continuing to do that, continuing to look for ways that we can be of assistance in that regard. We're also launching a more robust developer initiative. We're increasing development of housing, mixed use, and industrial sites across the region, but specifically for Mount Pleasant, this is something that we get a lot of requests from as is, and so we're excited to continue to develop those programs. And also continuing to look for key grants and funding opportunities to support community development initiatives, and then things like place-based growth. So Match on Main going on right now. We are going to be hopefully submitting quite a few applications from the city of Mount Pleasant, but continuing to look for those opportunities as well. And then lastly, projects, continuing to support business growth and sustainability as it works with current businesses across Mount Pleasant. Looking to see if we can help overcome any barriers that they may face. We'll continue to work with site selectors, realtors, and companies that are looking to locate here. And we'll continue to partner with the city to promote available sites and then to look at what additional sites might be able to be developed to meet the needs of the community. So in a nutshell, I have my work cut out for me, but I am excited. 2025 got started off on a rougher note, but I think there are really great things ahead. And so I thank you for your time to let me go over our annual report and to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives we're looking forward to in 2025. I know that in your packet, you also had an updated contract from Middle Michigan as well. And I'm happy to take any questions about the report, about the year ahead, or just anything in general related to the work that we do.
Commissioner Allison.
I just wanted to comment that, going through this report, you definitely highlighted Mount Pleasant and things that involved it. Sometimes with Jim, he would give us kind of the overview, and I said, well, tell us about Mount Pleasant. So I appreciate that that's still a focus.
Thank you. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Not seeing anyone else, I just want to say thank you. Looking for the year ahead, I enjoy the focus on people first there and just throughout the packet and just forward looking. And also my condolences still again for the loss of Jim McBride. He was a true asset to the community and to the region. So thank you to your team and wishing you the best and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else at this time. Yep, we will move out of the presentations then. At this time, we'll move into additions and deletions to the agenda. I believe, Manager DeSense, you had an item you wish to discuss?
Yes, I'm requesting that the City Commission consider appointment of Marilyn Wixon as interim city clerk to the agenda under new business, item number 12.
Is there a motion to add the appointment of Marilyn Wixom as interim city clerk to the agenda as item number 12?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We have that as item 12. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? seeing any. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented or modified.
Or as modified,
As
thank you.
modified.
I can second that.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the agenda as modified, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda is adopted. All right, at this time, we'll move on to public input on agenda items. If you wish to speak on any items on the agenda, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone on Zoom? Is there any emails?
We did get an email correspondence this morning with Rockland drawing attention to the letter that is part of the packet, and drawing particular attention to the number of people that are covered in on that letter.
Thank you. And we do have someone in the audience.
Cynthia Kilmer, 219 North Lansing Street, regarding agenda items. I see you have a strategy negotiation sessions with negotiations, collective bargaining agreement. I just want to say, I think you have a really terrific fire department. And if it has anything to do with the fire department, they're good people. So I hope you keep that in mind. Regarding item 15, closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act for personal evaluation of the city manager, I want to say I've had several contacts with your city manager, which have all been very positive. And I think you have a really good city manager, and I just want to say that. But I'll be back for the non-agenda items as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on agenda items? Not seeing anyone. At this time, I will close public input on agenda items, and we will move into receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense.
Receipt of petitions and communications this evening includes the minutes of the Planning Commission from February 2025, request for a work session from Mount Pleasant Historic District Building/business owners, and receipt of the 2024 citywide annual report.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda which the commissioners would like moved into new business?
I'd like to pull number 8.
Number 8 is approved 5-year contract with HydroCore for cross-connection control program and water meter installation. With that request, we'll move that into new business. It will retain its number. It will still be number 8, and it'll be the first item we discuss in new business. Are there any other items that we would like to remove from the consent agenda? Let's see. Is there any discussion on any of the items? Any questions? Sorry, it's awfully quiet in here. We have a smaller audience than the past couple of weeks. Let's see. I'd like to just comment on the consider budget amendment for internship program. Manager DeSense, if you want to read off the agenda, the consent items that we have.
Absolutely. Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held March 10, 2025, approval of the minutes from the special meeting held March 13, 2025, consider approval of MMDC contract for economic development services, consider budget amendment for internship programs, and approval of payrolls and warrants.
Thank you, Manager DeSense. With that, the one comment I wanted to make was on the consider budget amendment for internship programs. Manager DeSense, if you could speak on that real quick.
Let me just grab my note on this really quick here. All right. So I know when working with the staff, we've talked about this internally. I think in years in the future, what we want to do is start to budget for kind of a pool of internships across the organization. This really is in kind of collaboration with our value of development and trying to foster more internships and greater connections with the secondary education facilities here in Mount Pleasant. But in particular to this request, we're asking for a budget amendment of $30,000 to allow for 4 interns to work at City Hall during the summer. In particular, there are 2 opportunities. One was a direct contact from the MPA program over at Central Michigan University, who has an individual who's very interested in local government, in particular in policy, with a lot of the projects that we're working on right now, which is our TIF district updates, looking at a couple of different ordinances and doing some research on the opioid settlement funds. I figured this would be a perfect project for the intern to work on, and so I'd like at least 1 allocation for that. And then a second allocation would be to build a cohort of 3 different interns that would work with city staff to develop some centralized organizational-wide training materials to use for new employees as well as for leadership development.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Alsager?
I just have one thought on that first bullet, that the first opportunity would be to work on the development of a TIFA. And I think last week we kind of were steered away from that a little, or last meeting we were steered away from that a little bit with some of the entities that we're talking about. They might have their funding lessened if we create a TIFA. And I think we might have other funding opportunities, some of the marijuana money or the opioid money that maybe we don't need to form a TIFA.
Yeah, I know we're going to have further conversation on this in April, but we do have at least 1 TIFA that is going forward, and that was for the Mission Street TIFA. That was one that the City Commission wanted to move forward on, and so we would still have to develop a TIFA plan for the Mission Street TIFA in order for them to continue their work.
Are we comfortable with the items still in the consent agenda? Perfect. Gotcha. Oh, Vice Mayor Eke.
I'm glad that we're doing this, this internship. And I mean, $30,000, for each year, in terms of internship really is, we're looking at, what are you doing? Minimum wage payment, right?
This would be a $15 per hour.
Okay, it's worth it. This makes it possible for us to continue or enhance or strengthen our relationship with, the various institutions around us. I'm biased towards CMU, but I also like, the Mid-Michigan College, but just really to support students because they do need the internship. It will provide them with experience. And I think that they will add value to what we do. So this is important. I will support it. I think it's worthwhile, idea.
Right. With that, is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? Not seen.
I have just minor.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that at a certain point, we'll think about having this as a line item on the budget so that we don't come back to it again and again and again.
Yep,
And that way we
absolutely.
set aside money, either from the marijuana, something, just like, okay, all right.
Absolutely.
That's what I would propose anyway. Okay.
Okay, and with that, I'll take a motion to approve the consent items as modified.
I move that we approve the consent items as modified.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say yeah. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent items are approved. There are no public hearings this evening. We'll now move into the new business. The first item was item number 8, which was moved out of the consent agenda. That was approved 5-year contract with HydroCorp for cross-connection control program and water meter installation. First, Manager DeSense, if you wanted to give a little bit of background on this.
Absolutely. So the City Commission is requested to approve a 5-year contract with HydroCorp for administration of the Cross Connection Control Program and installation of Metron meters. State and local regulations require that cross connections be inspected on a regular basis. HydroCorp has provided this service in the past. Staff is recommending that our contract with HydroCorp also include meter installations. This is beneficial as the city will already be paying for the deployment of these inspectors who can also facilitate meter updates, thus saving the city money on time and labor compared to another service provider. This also eliminates the need for multiple contractors to enter the homes of residents. To help ensure that the city is keeping pace with its goal of upgrading the city's meters within a 5-year window, the total of each year of the contract is noted in Director Moore's memo in the City Commission packet, and I know the Director Moore can probably provide some answers to any particular questions the City Commission may have.
Commissioner Zhang, you had requested this out of the consent agenda, if you would like to speak.
I pulled it from the consent agenda just because the magnitude, this is nearly $2/3 of $1 million. It's that cross-connection program, which is one of the reasons that why Mount Pleasant's water is safe. And this is a good program. I'm endorsing it. It's just that we need to be aware up front. This is a lot of money spent. It's dual purpose here now because in addition to adding the new meters, we have been before and we continue to take care of cross-connection issues, look for those and find them, and this protects the city's water. This is a good thing. I endorse this and hope that we'll support it. But because of that magnitude, $665,000, I wanted to make sure that we all go in this with our eyes wide open.
Gotcha. And if either Manager DeSense or Director Moore, just checking, could you confirm that this was part of the budget and everything for this year, for budgeted into 2025?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Eke?
Okay, so as somebody who has an irrigation system in my, this is important. I agree with Commissioner Zhang that this is important to make sure we don't have backflow into, our water system. And this is a 5-year contract. We have a history with this company already.
Correct.
All right? And you're satisfied with that history and relationship, otherwise you would not be sending them forward. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, HydroCorp's been very good to work with. They're very professional. They're good at working with residents to set up the appointments and that. And also, this is a 5-year contract, but we do have the option, if at some point we are not satisfied, we've got the opt-out, every year, so.
And so if residents want to set up an appointment, who do they call, you or HydroCorp?
They will be contacted from HydroCorp. I believe they'll get a letter, and then they'll be asked to set up an appointment. So,
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, thank you. I'll support it also.
Is there any further discussion? With that, is there a motion to approve the contract?
I make a motion that we approve the 5-year contracts with HydroCorp for cross-connection control program and the water meter installation.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, we are moving on to new business. Item number 11, consider prioritization and approval of submission of city requests for spring 2025 Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe 2% allocation. Manager DeSense?
The City Commission annually reviews staff requests for 2% allocation grants through the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe Grant Program. As part of this review process, the City Commission is asked to rank the top 5 projects for consideration from the tribe. The top projects do not need to be in ranking order. Instead, they should convey the top 5 projects that are most important to each commissioner. We will then provide the collective top 5 rankings to the tribe while submitting all the grant applications to them. The Tribal Council considers these priority projects listed by the City Commission when making their awards.
Okay.
Gotcha. Before we begin, could you remind me, and I forgot to ask for updated numbers, so this is on me, but I remember asking last year for a rough count of how much funding we had received from the tribe during this program. I believe it was above 20 million, was it?
Yes, over the past roughly 20 years, give or take or so, yes.
Gotcha. So I just wanted to, again, comment on that, and thanks to the tribe for their generosity on this. With that, I believe, Clerk Bauk, you usually lead this process in collecting the... Oh, you just record? Thank you. In that case, we'll default to alphabetical order. So I'll start with Commissioner Alsager.
Okay, thank you. Well, some years it's real easy. They're just ranked, either critical or high, and the numbers just work out that there's 5 of them. So I started with the airport requests for operations for $80,000, and then ANOS relocation for $35,000. And then under community services, the PEAK program for $115,000. And then from the police, their request for a van for $80,000 and change. And then for public works for lime disposal.
Thank you. Commissioner Bush is absent. Vice Mayor Eke.
Okay. I am not mentioning amounts. I have airport operating funds, PEAK, the emergency system from police, lime disposal, and sanitary sewer. Sanitary sewer
Realigning.
realignment, I think.
Realigning.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Commissioner Perschbacher.
I'm going with the critical and the high priority. So the airport operational funding, the AWOS relocation, PEAK program, emergency service team and youth academy van, and lime disposal.
Thank you. Commissioner Rollins.
Okay, so the PEAK program, emergency services team and youth academy van, lime disposal, sanitary sewer relining, and the sewer pipeline inspection camera.
Okay. And then for myself, let's see, I'm going with the 4 critical items and the 1 high item. So airport operational funding, AWOS relocation, PEAK funding, emergency services team and youth academy van, and then lime disposal. And Commissioner Zhang.
In order, I put the PEAK program, the airport operations funding, the emergency services team van, lime disposal, and sanitary sewer relining.
Wait, did you take a peek at my document?
No, I had it written down.
Thank you, Commissioners. Clerk Bauk, did you get all that? Thank you. Okay, I don't believe any additional action is needed now that we have received that communication from each of the Commissioners. Let's see. With that, we'll move on to item number 12, the interim appointment of interim clerk. Manager dissents.
So our city clerk, Heather Bauk, has submitted her letter of resignation effective March 26 to accept the position with the state of Michigan. And although we will miss Heather and the skill set that she brings, we certainly wish her well in her new venture. The city will be responsible for administering an election on Tuesday, May 6. While city staff has moved quickly in posting the position of city clerk, we will not have enough time to recruit, onboard, and train a new clerk within that time frame. Other duties of the clerk include serving as the Freedom of Information Act coordinator, administering the city's property and insurance program, and functioning as the recorder of record for the city of for the City Commission. Staff is recommending that the current Deputy Clerk, Marilyn Wixon, be appointed as interim City Clerk. Marilyn Wixon has been the city's Deputy Clerk since September 23rd, 2024. She also holds the appropriate knowledge and training to plan for and run the city election, and did so in November of 2020 with city staff. Moving forward, staff has posted the vacant position and is actively recruiting a qualified candidate to assume the role of City Clerk. We're asking for a motion this evening to appoint Marilyn Wixon as the interim City Clerk.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item from the commission?
No,
Gotcha.
it's an emergency.
With that, I just want to say, Clerk Bauk, we've really appreciated your time here and all the talents and work that you have done as part of the city. Sad to see you go, but I know that you have great opportunities in front of you, and wishing you all the best on your future endeavors. If there is a motion from the commission to approve Marilyn Wixon as the interim city clerk,
I move that we appoint Marilyn Wixon as interim city clerk.
I'll second.
there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Yes, Commissioner Zane.
A couple quick comments. I'd like to echo your sentiments. We've had a wonderful, probably the best clerk in mid-Michigan, and I appreciate her work. Also, Marilyn Wixon has a full-time job and does a lot of things, so hopefully we'll backfill and help some of her stuff, because this has taken on a lot of work all at once, so thank you, Marilyn, for even doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I will say the same thing to Heather, but, above all, I appreciate your working with CMU to create an early voting, station over there, because it really, I would say it improved the lives of a lot of people, students, myself, a lot of residents. I'm being honest, that was just simply wonderful. I wish you luck. We're gonna miss you, but I echo the mayor. I think you will have great success with the state. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion before we move out of this item? Seeing none, let's see. It is 7:41. We have a work session and then several closed sessions. Talking with the rest of the commission, I probably would want to just go straight into the work session, or would we like a break between?
We still have some
We
things
still
on the
have some
agenda.
things to
Have
do.
something still.
Oh, sorry, I get carried away. Thank you. Let's see. This time, we'll move into announcements on city-related issues and new business. Let's see. With that, again, we're going to go alphabetically as we've been for the past couple of weeks. Commissioner Al Sager.
I didn't bring anything new other than wanting to wish Heather the best.
Thank you. Commissioner Bush is absent. Vice Mayor Eke.
I can't think of anything right now.
Gotcha. Commissioner Perschbacher.
There are a couple things, with I know it doesn't look like it, and it certainly doesn't feel like it, but with the spring that we have upon us now, I want to remind people not to rake their leaves into the street. We do not pick up leaves in the spring, only in the fall. And if you have a curb that has a street drain, try to remove the leaves from the street drain, because when it rains, that will flood very quickly. Also, with the nice weather, when we've had it, walking dogs has been a wonderful thing, and I love watching people walk their dogs everywhere. I do want to remind everyone that we have a leash ordinance. Please keep your dog on a leash when you are out walking them about. It's not because we are afraid your dog's going to attack someone. It's that dogs are creatures and they will get spooked and they will do things, and we just want to protect not only your dog, but other dogs and other animals. And remind you that if your dog does something out in the park, you must clean it up, please, so no one else has to take it home on their shoe. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rollins?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Let's see, for myself, let's see. I had, in talking with the volunteers of the Isabella County Council of Governments, there was interest in seeing if the city would host a meeting of the Council of Governments. This is a voluntary association of the different government entities within Isabella County. So the different townships, villages, the county, the city, all are welcome to, again, voluntarily send representatives. But they were, again, interested in seeing if the city would be interested in hosting a meeting. We could present on whatever we'd be interested in talking about, or a topic could be provided. Again, they were looking for maybe Q3 or Q4 of this year. I wanted to ask the commission if there was interest in that before just telling staff to just put on a party. Wanted to find out. I'm seeing nods of interest and everything from those around us.
Can explore it.
Yeah, I think in a lot of the work we do, intergovernmental cooperation has been a big theme. So we'll talk further with staff on that then about coordinating on that. So thank you. I wanted to remind my fellow commissioners that we had scheduled a parliamentary procedure training for, I believe, April 7th. And so this would be the first meeting, or this is the last meeting before that meeting takes place. We're looking at 6 to 9 p.m., I believe, at City Hall. So that will be taking place here. And then Manager DeSense, I believe other members of city boards and commissions were invited to that as well.
Yep, that's correct. We sent the invite to anyone who is a member of one of the city boards or commissions.
Perfect, thank you. So yep, that will be taking place April 7th, 6 to 9 p.m. here. Let's see. And then we had been working on setting up a tour of the water treatment facilities. This was something I was interested in getting accomplished this year. And it sounds like May 5th is probably going to be the date that is working best from those respondents we've had. Let's see, I believe it's from noon to 3 p.m. is what we were looking at. And then, so we'll work on like finalizing that and send out a finalized email, assuming nothing's changed for the water department. Let's see. But otherwise, that should be all I have. Let's see. Commissioner Zhang?
Nothing.
Nothing? Thank you. All right. I'd also like to just say thank you to my fellow commissioners for helping keeping me on course here. Let's see. At this time, we'll move into public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you would like to speak, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. Ask to state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Cynthia Kilmer, 219 North Fancher Street. Becky Brown, who you all probably recall, she had a niece, I would call the niece Holly. Holly was a special ed kid. She was in special ed from like the first grade. She had failure to thrive. She never got taller than 4'9" in her adulthood. She was a very small child. So Becky asked me if I could find some jobs for her to do as a teenager around the office. So I did. She came and went every couple of weeks. She shredded papers and did some cleaning and other sorts of stuff that she could do. Holly matured physically at a very early age, and thus she was taken advantage of sexually by a young man by the time she was about 13 or so. I'm going to call him Stephen. Stephen was several years older than her, and the relationship was completely illegal. He was the manager of a fast food place in town. When Holly was 16, Stephen got custody of a baby that he had with another relationship. He asked Holly to move in with him and raise his baby, and she was completely dependent on him. She left home, she raised the baby, she quit school, she quit her part-time job. He was very controlling, and she was completely dependent. One weekend, when he had a couple of days off, Holly decided to go visit a girlfriend in Farwell. It was a very what do I want to say, healthy thing to do for her, who was otherwise playing house in a relationship in which she was much too young to hold. He was angry that she left. When she came back 2 days later, there was another woman in her place. Holly swore at him. Can you believe it? They had an argument, a verbal argument. He called the police, the Mount Pleasant Police Department, to complain that she was swearing at him. Oh my goodness. And she wanted him to be removed, her to be removed from his home for having the audacity to have an argument with him. And the police complied. They showed up. They told her she had to leave. Having worked around a law office, she said, "You can't just kick me out at 2 a.m. This is my home. I live here." She showed the police her state ID, showing that the address on the ID was the address in which they were there. There were 3 male police officers, 3 male police officers, who threatened to tase a 4'9" special ed teenager if she did not leave this house immediately at 2 or 3 in the morning. So she left. She called Becky Brown. Becky Brown came to get her. They loaded an entire truckload full of her things, absolute proof that she did in fact live there. They illegally evicted her in the middle of the night. This is Mount Pleasant police officers. Your guys did this. You can ask for the police report. It's there because I did and I have it. One of the officers' name was Brown, B-R-O-W-N-E. There's an E on the end. I can't remember the other 2. There were 3 males. They threatened to tase a teenage 4'9" girl. You guys need work on this police department. You do. The next day, I started to prepare a massive lawsuit. All of her rights were violated. Her right to due process, her rights, her eviction rights. You know, there's a huge section of Michigan compiled laws that says all the due process rights you have to go through to ask someone to leave their home, right? Landlords have to follow all this stuff. There's, 30 days notice, 60 days notice, all this stuff. It's like mind-boggling. No, all the police have to do is threaten to tase you, get your ass out in a month, in an hour. Get out in an hour. You know what her crime was? She swore. So I called my friend, Director Loria. I called him because he gave me a cell phone before. Remember the story I told you about Angela Brown? And he gave me his phone. Call me when something happens. I called him. You think he called me back? No. No, he didn't. He sent some lieutenant over to talk to me who defended his officers and said, this lieutenant said to me in my office, well, it was a difficult situation because she swore at the officers. Are you effing kidding me? I have a serious good working relationship with Michigan codified laws when it comes to eviction. There is no clause in any of those laws that says if a person swears, all of her civil rights and due process rights go out the window. And my friend, my special education little 4'9" friend, she knew the law better than the Mount Pleasant Police Department. These guys need training, seriously.
Is there anyone else in the audience for public comment?
That's a hard act to follow. My name is Alice Chiku, 419 South Fancher, and I came here today to express my deep appreciation for Heather Bauk and the exceptional service that she has provided the community during her tenure as city clerk. I know she wears a lot of hats, so my comments are based on her position as the head of elections for the city. I am a poll worker. Heather's professionalism, knowledge, and management skills have been nothing short of extraordinary. The elections she has run while I've been working the polls have been flawless. She and her staff, and I want to make note that I wrote this before I came here. It says, shout out to Marilyn. They made sure that the polls workers were well-trained, that the polling stations were immaculately provisioned, and that she and they were always available for anything we needed. I have worked many elections over the past several years, and many times we were on the phone to her several times during the day for issues or situations that arose that we needed to check on. Heather was always available, and she made frequent visits to all the precincts throughout the day to answer our questions. I was amazed at the knowledge that she had for every situation, and I realized that elections, that's her job, so she should know it. However, the rules, the regulations, the requirements, the software changes all the time. And we only have 2 or 3 elections a year. So frequently things change between one election and the next. And every single time we ran into issues, she knew the information, she knew the answers, she knew it cold without having to look it up. Not once did she say, oh, I'm not sure about that. Oh, I have to go look that up. She always knew it, and she was 100% accurate. Another reason for her effectiveness is her collaboration. She worked with her colleagues. When appropriate, we would be trained by the county clerk with Mindy. We had a unified early voting precinct, which was very efficient. As I'm sure you're aware, over the last few elections, the political climate has changed, and Heather has handled the challenge that this has brought very well. She has diffused charged situations both ahead of elections and in real time on election day. The issues were always resolved in a very direct and calm manner with no violence or no drama. And I know she has spent time on the phones with voters who were very concerned about the elections. She didn't brush them off. She didn't hide from them. She spoke with them, and she listened to them as long as they needed to be heard to know that their concerns were addressed. I'm happy that Heather has found a situation that fits her career goals and her skill set. However, I'm very sad for Mount Pleasant. We are losing a tremendous resource. She is leaving very big shoes to fill, and I hope you realize what we are losing. I don't know how easy it will be to replace her, but I urge you to work very hard to find someone as knowledgeable as she is and as competent as she is. And I know I can't speak for all the poll workers because I don't know all of them, but every poll worker I have talked to feels the same way that I do. We are incredibly saddened by Heather's departure, and we feel fortunate to have had her for the time that we did. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience for public comment? Is there anyone online? Any emails? All right. At this time, we'll close public comments. Let's see. All right, back to where we were a few items ago. Would the commission like to do recess now before the work session?
We need a 5-minute recess.
Okay. We are going to adjourn now at 7:56 for 5 minutes. We'll resume at 8:01.
Quite a few pages in our packet are due to Director Laura.
Hi, Katie. Thank you.
No.
Katie. Thank you so much for the tribute.
MA, that is not good.
That's so, Jim. You know, I don't know if I told you when I was on the Broadway board.
Territory.
This
This
talked about, it's just
A bit.
it is. It's not something I expected from
No, not at all. No, it was that was like the easiest part of the whole annual report was, I knew exactly what we wanted to do to pay tribute.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
he always loved putting little Easter eggs in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And so I know he
Yeah.
just loved it.
Did he
Yeah,
ever show up?
thank
He
you
didn't
so
show
much.
up.
We'll see you around. Yep.
Bye. Oh, we're moving at a really good clip. Just stretching. No, I'm fine. I usually
Thank you
stretch.
very much.
Especially.
You know Michelle White? She,
Yeah.
she sits in the back there
Yeah,
sometimes. She's a friend. Her dog was by a dog that got away.
Yeah.
The person opened the door and killed it.
Yeah.
Killed it.
You never know.
And I get it. I
Oh,
get
yeah.
it. So that was huge. And she told me to tell you, thank you for mentioning.
Of course, of course. Well, you know, I have Token Hope lives down my way.
Tobin?
But that dog is, you know, I said, no, you will. He said, we got
You did? Where?
we celebrated 20.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I mean, like, we're the largest municipality.
Oh, was Donna there?
Yeah, I made most of it. Work on doing something personal.
I bet.
I sent you.
No.
Are you private?
It's the 335-4378? No.
No?
We'll talk more about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. My neighbor and I, we take turns clearing the leaves from the gutter in front of our house.
I mean, the fact that you brought that up, just like that, right time, the right
Yep.
message. Yeah. What it means, you recognize that.
I know. Yeah, well, thank you.
It's always good.
I worked with
You know,
If everyone wants to return to their seats,
It's okay.
Facebook, so you might want to keep that thing under lock and key. Well, he's gonna talk about it. Does this thing automatically, do they?
okay, we are back in session now at 8:01 still.
I control the computer, but they're gonna put it up there, right?
We're gonna kick off the work session here now with Director Loria.
We're all, yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna assume that everybody read my memo that was in the packet, but if you didn't, we can do a quick recap. When I was looking into this, the last time we addressed any sort of, whether it was sidewalks or streets with electric scooters and whatnot, the classes of bikes weren't out. So there's class 1, 2, and 3. And I included that in your packet, and that's defined by Michigan law. It's real important to understand that the distinction between the classes. So the first class is an assisted powered bike while pedaling. So if the rider does not pedal, there's no assistance. When the rider starts pedaling, there's assistance up to 20 miles per hour, okay? And then all the assistance cuts off at 20 miles per hour. Category 2 or Class 2. These are actual bikes that need no human power. So they don't have to be pedaled. They can be, but they don't have to be. And they can be 100% electric. This is, if I was going in a class, this is the class I would choose. That's just a personal note. Class 3. Class 3, oh, by the way, Class 2 is up to 20 miles per hour as well. Class 3 is similar to Class 1, except that it goes as high as 28 miles per hour. So it's a difference in, 8 miles per hour. Now, why is it important to understand these? Well, first and foremost, anyone that's ridden a bike, if you're a competitive bike rider, hitting 28 is nothing. You can do that, no problem. So I want to be very deliberate in, we have to separate them, but we have to remember that a totally human-powered bike can go equally as fast and probably faster, no doubt, than any one of the classes of bikes. Now, can they sustain it over miles? Well, some of them can, but, I would put my money on Class 2. With that being said, what I did was I went into the District of Columbia's, Washington, D.C., into their ordinances and laws and the National Park Service. And oddly enough, they don't allow them. They allow scooters that can go a maximum of 10 miles per hour, okay? Now, the reason I looked at that was you think of the traffic that the monuments have on a daily basis. A lot of pedestrians are walking it. And then you compare it to our trail system or path system that we have. And I know a lot of people use them, but it isn't going to amount to that. So I thought, what do they do? Well, as I dove further into this, there was and with the city's attorney, we discovered that there's a number of rules that are already in place. And if you go to the Parks and Recreation, it's the Chapter 97, the highlight. It says, the speed of vehicles, ride or drive a vehicle at the rate of speed exceeding 15 miles per hour, except upon such roads the director may designate by posted signs for speedier travel. So it says ride or drive a vehicle, okay, at a rate of speed of 15. If you go further down to the second highlight in that section, which is section 7B, bicyclists shall at all times operate same within reasonable regard for the safety of others, signal all turns and follow all applicable road traffic laws, and share the trail etiquette policy published by the Parks and Recreation Department. Pedestrians will have the right of way on all trails, sidewalks, and roadways unless designated specific for bicycle use, okay? I thought there was one more, but maybe not. Now, a violation of that is a municipal civil infraction. If you happen to be a juvenile, it gets referred to probate court, so on and so forth. My point for telling you that is we already have essentially a speed limit in place in the park system. I don't know as though, obviously it's up to the commission, but I don't know as though it's in our best interest to reinvent the wheel and put a speed limit in there that, number one, would be difficult to enforce. I mean, we can put a police officer in there on the off chance someone's gonna come by on a bike exceeding the speed limit, and then they get stopped and you know, educated or written a ticket or something along those lines. Or, and this is in conversation, I didn't come up with this, Phil Bisconer did. We can educate, put signage up, and then we have to enforce or reinforce the etiquette of people who use the pass. I don't know, I'm not saying that we haven't done that. I'm saying that we have to do a more, a better job at the signage and reminding park users or pathway users about the etiquette and safety that's involved while using the path. Now, if there is not a designated prohibition on those bikes, if it's silent, they're allowed, okay? I say that because our city attorney said, hey, you might want to say or ask them or get a flavor of what they want to allow in the way of e-bikes on those paths. And I said, okay. It's important to remember that at some point, this is going to be part of the pathway project. So you don't want to do something here to undo something once there's a connection further down the road. And so there's a number of things that you have to keep in your mind while we decide what to do. State of Michigan, if you look at the kind of the diagram handout, Michigan's electric bike law, and hold on here. It goes through on what is allowed. And if you look under the Michigan electric bicycle law for trails, currently Michigan Department of Natural Resources does not allow electric bikes on natural surface trails like hiking or MTB trails. Electric bikes are permitted on improved surfaces, linear trails, and rail trails. Contact the department for the most update for information. So they do allow the first and second class, or first and third class, or is it first and second? I'm sorry. They just allow the class 1 bicycle on their paths.
We'll stay with that then.
So there's a number of things. It's my recommendation, obviously, you heard what my recommendation was, to say we're gonna have a 10-mile-per-hour speed limit. We already have due care and caution as a bicycle operator. We do need to shore up the electric bike classification within our ordinance, and that's simply adding them. And when we add them and refer to Michigan law, I would also like to give our attorney direction on what classes are allowed and which ones are not. But ultimately, you guys are the decision makers.
Commissioner Alsager.
Well, and I think it's a good warning that you gave that this is going to not just impact our city parks, but it's going to be part of the community trail, going. And on those trails, you're out there by yourself, you can probably go fairly fast.
Yeah.
No one else is in your way, and they're not that busy. So I don't know how specific we want to be for in town, if we want one ordinance to cover both.
I think that when we talked about cleaning up some of the ordinances and combining them, that was part of it, is to make it not so robust, but to combine a number of these ordinances within the same section, so you're not flipping all over the place trying to find what's allowed and what isn't.
Right.
Vice Mayor?
I think this is a very complicated piece. We already have some language in an existing, for, through the Parks and Rec that address, the usage of bikes on the trail. My inclination is to make it simple and enforceable, not complicated. And I would say just, follow the guidelines provided, especially if we're talking about e-bikes and Michigan. If Michigan, the state of Michigan has, policies or protocol or whatever it is you want to call it for, bikes on their trails, I don't see why we cannot adopt those, because that would be consistent with the state. And then we won't have to do anything that we'll either need to undo later on, because, we're engaged with the state on this, expansion of our trails. That's my inclination, just simply stay with the state's, recommendations. And that way, you can always go to the state's recommendation to see, what it has, when it's updated it or not updated it. And then whatever the local one is, if it's not consistent with the states, to make sure that it's either consistent with the states, or that people also signal that, the responsible body signals to the public that there is a shift in the local ordinance and that this is what it looks like. The first time we talked about this, my concern had to do with signage. There's absolutely no signage anywhere. I walk those trails and I ride them. So I do think that we need to have some signs there. And I remember saying something about a sign that says, either bikes are not allowed, or, this speed limit, or watch out for bikes. Especially when people don't ring their bells or just zipping and zapping past you. I think at least having some kind of sign, placing some signs at strategic points on the trails would help a little bit. That's where I am. This, I want to avoid complicating matters and sort of, if we don't have to.
Yeah, Commissioner Birschbacher.
This last summer, I was down in Chicago, and they've got an amazing bike trail across the lake. And you can easily get killed on it. There is so many bikes riding and so many people walking. But the one thing that I noticed is everyone knew the direction they were supposed to go, what side of the road they were supposed to be on, and the bicycle etiquette was used. When somebody comes up on you, they're supposed to say on your left, so that you know to step to the right, so that they can pass you easily. And they're supposed to give you, just like a car is supposed to give 3 feet between the car and the bicyclist on the road, they're supposed to give you at least a little bit of a girth there, so you don't, if there's a stumble or something. I would like to see, we used to have the bike race that we used to do in town. And when we did that, we had like bike swaps and helmet giveaways. And I think also the police department registered bikes during that time. And I think that it would be a great way for the city to bring this understanding, because we do have a lot of bikes in town, just like we have the scooters. There's a lot of movement, and I would like to see something done where we have this educational piece incorporated into some type of an event as well. Trying to, put signage on the trails, because there is no signage saying, yes, you can ride your bike, but, ride with care, be careful. The paths are wide, but they're not wide. I mean, in Chicago, they're wide. You do 4 bikes abreast going one way. So I would like to see us encourage people that if they want to ride their e-bikes on the road, that's perfectly fine, as long as they stay where they're supposed to be. If they want to ride it on the path, according to Michigan's electric bicycle law, only Class 1 is allowed on these bike paths and linear trails. And I think that's appropriate for our trails as well, because of the fact that there are people that walk, there are people that walk their dogs, people that jog, and it can be dangerous when you have bicycles going 20, 28 miles an hour. And we do have a limit. We have a 15-mile-an-hour limit on the road. So I think the education, if we could roll it into something that we could do every year, just this education every year, because we have new people moving into the city. We have new generations buying their first bike or getting a bike and moving on. And I'd like to see us educate our residents on how to enjoy our trails, enjoy our city, our walkable and bikeable area safely.
Commissioner Zhang?
I'd suggest that the importance of this, we should understand that what we're talking about here is going to essentially change the parks as we know them or not. For those that have gone on the parks, ours, you're right, they're not like, Paul, Director Laura, you said around the Washington Monument, those things are really wide. Chicago is wide. Almost if you saw it, you didn't believe it. But when you go on our trails, they're not that wide, and they meander. Turn here, turn there. If we had a Class 2 bicycle, it could traverse almost this whole room in a second. Even if you said, come and buy, I can't say that whole sentence because I'm buying. And that's even if you had that much time on a curve. Somebody who's walking a dog, we got to change our leash law because you can't let that dog get farther than that person's hip. Because, and certainly the signs that we put out there where people, you read a storybook as you go by, if they stop in that pathway, then there's going to be a problem. You pass them going on the oncoming traffic, how does that work? Sometimes kids, especially small ones you see on the trail, they meander from their parents. Not allowed here if we're talking speed. And speed isn't going to be like 15, 20, 30 miles an hour. It's going to be anything over 5. For our bicyclists, and most of them do not have speedometers on their bikes, so they don't know what they're going. And runners can pass up a bike, and probably that's what ought to happen. But my suggestion would be absolutely no power vehicles on the parks. Our park system is set up for like a walk in the park. If we intend to change it, as City Commission, we're allowed to do that. But we should understand what we're doing. One of the things that makes our parks good is you can get on the thing and you can walk. If you're going to go over these bridges 20 miles an hour with people on them, 10 miles an hour, there's going to be a problem. And it won't be the walk in the park that we recognize now. It'll be something different. Eventually, this will become a thoroughfare between the north and the south, and we'll have to address that issue, how we're going to do this. Because when you take your bike down to, from Alma to Ithaca along the freeway there, I'm telling you, you can go fast and there's nothing to worry about, and you can see far ahead. When you're on a rail or trail, the state rules, of course, you can see a long ways off, not in our parks. And the paths, they're not that wide. They're wider than some of our sidewalks, but they're not that wide. And if you walk there, it's not uncommon to see more than 2 people. And if you've got 3 or 4 people, they're going to infringe on the other lane. So when we look at this, it can't be just in terms of how fast can a bike go or what kind of motorized vehicles we're going to allow. It needs to be, what do we want our city parks to be? Do we want it to be a walk in the park, or do we want it to be a thoroughfare? And I caution us to consider that, because it does have some long-term ramifications, and we'll be responsible for making a dramatic change in how we view our parks or not.
Thank you.
I have one other thought. If I want to ride my bike down to Shepherd, I go on city streets and then I get on the trail. And so I'm intentionally not going on in the parks. So I appreciate everything that Commissioner Zhang said, that our parks should be for the current uses.
I had a couple questions. For the GKB, I know that there's no like authority or like tax authority over it. It's all the different municipalities like cooperating on it. But is there like an organization in charge of like any kind of coordination or anything? Or is it like that you're aware of?
I don't know.
Okay. Because yeah, it goes through several different, especially the GKB will go through several different municipalities. So it's going to become a patchwork if everyone does their own thing.
It's my understanding it's more of an interest group, if you will. As you had said,
Yeah.
there's no necessarily authority or anything like that, but there is a group that is very much interested in a currently identified trail route.
Okay. Thank you.
From where I looked in to that trail, there's no speed limit. That is, so, I mean, you think of that trail and how far that goes. And then, so.
Let's see.
I want to just add one other thing, and I know there's more discussion to be had. But if it's a serious consideration for no powered vehicles, we have to further talk about powered vehicles. Does that mean that the 4-year-old that has the battery powered Tonka truck, that's what we get into here? And there will be complaints. There's the intent of the law and there's the letter of the law. And so if the intent is 2-wheeled vehicles, we need, I guess I need to know that so that it can be properly called out.
Yeah, because my powered chair goes 6 miles an hour. So
But I think we would have ADA federal laws that would apply in cases such as yours.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right though.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rollins, you are spot on.
Just a couple other things that I had real quick. As far as like signage, etiquette, education, I think going back to like the initial conversation that we had was, or part of it anyway, was the practicality of enforcement of any action that we took. And so I think ideas surrounding, like, again, enforcing the education elements within the community and building that culture, as Commissioner Perschbacher said. I know Commissioner Alsager is a dedicated biker. Can you hit 28 miles? Do you hit 28 miles or higher?
Just going down a hill.
Just going down a hill? Okay, gotcha. For our like parks plans, is there any kind of we have a parks master plan, if I'm not mistaken. Is there any like consideration for like, rather than like an ordinance, like perhaps physical means of like controlling speeds, like periodic like speed bumps or anything of that nature? I don't work with it all the time myself, but kind of like items such as that.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
There are some.
We don't have any speed bumps. If I can caution you, though, there's the law of unintended consequences.
Yes.
I'd be very happy to take one of those at 20 miles an hour, just thinking, I can get some good air there. Maybe there's a design, maybe there's something that keeps me from doing that, but obviously you also don't want to harm the bike rider. But I just think,
Yeah.
speed bump 20 miles, yeah, I'm going to
I
get some air.
can see the skateboarders having a field day.
Yeah.
As a layperson, that's the only real idea that comes to mind. I don't want to take my Toyota going at any speed on a speed bump, so that's just, but other items potentially, I suppose, but that was something I had in mind. The other two items, again, I just wanted to jump in real quick. As far as like signage, I know we have like bike repair stations around town. Those would probably be a good place to like have postings. Again, someone's working on their bike and everything, and they have a sign just right there reminding them of expectations for them as they're in the community on the bike. Let's see, was there other commissioners with comments or anything? I will keep going and everything. Real quick, I thought this would be a time to ask. We've received public comment a couple of times from Joseph Carrion about mapping overlays between Google Maps and the bike trails. I actually was talking to him at Outreach and everything, and he was showing me actually how it plays out and everything as far as the overlay actually showing those paths. Have you looked into that at all or anything?
I
Or
have
do you
not, no.
Oh, okay, yeah, I just saw you shaking your head, so I didn't know if that was something you had started.
No.
I think that'd be an interesting thing to, again, like right now, it's probably a GIS. It would probably fall under, would be that jurisdiction there.
Use GIS to map it.
Yeah, we did actually reach out to Google and see if there was any way that we could, affect that. The problem is that it has to do with the algorithm that they use in order to determine those routes, so we could go on there and say that you can't ride a bike on a particular street, and that would help direct it toward a different intersection. But that's not what we want to do either. In some ways, it comes down to, it does the same thing for if you drive your car. It likes to direct you to Mission when that's not a great road to go down with a car. You just, if you know the area, you're going to do better. So I think that's kind of where we're at with that. They didn't give us any options to, be able to just pick and choose
Gotcha.
how those routes get developed.
Gotcha. I'm thinking of someone in a hurry, especially like if they're using Google Maps, if that was a tool available, I guess it's sounding like it's probably not, but if that was a tool available, then we could use, again, the algorithm or something to guide people away from the trails at higher speeds.
I think, I'd have to look into that. You may be able to mark the trails as not being able to use motorized, bikes on it.
Okay.
I don't know how granular it gets.
But then it would get into like, what is our ordinance at that point?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Thank you. That's a lot of the questions I had.
Along with what you're saying, I think that's why this is important, because there is a distinction. The bike paths aren't going to be a thoroughfare, so the bikers are the happy ones. It needs to be that we need to look out for the city parks and the people who use them most, which in our case are going to be people who walk in the park. And there are people who bring their little kid with a Tonka toy that has a motor on it. We also need to worry about scooters, the scooter rental places, at the skateboarders with the motorized skateboards, things like that. But the key for me is to say, when I'm walking down the trail with somebody, with a friend, by myself, and I've been on a trail with a bike too, but I don't look at it, when I'm on it with a bike, I don't look at like this is a thoroughfare for me to get to the other end of town. It's rather that I'm watching out for everybody, because this is a walk in the park for most people. And it is a beautiful place. I could see why somebody would want to ride a bike so they can see more of it. But you get on a bridge with 3 or 4 bikes coming, and you're there trying to herd your kids in or hold your dog tight or whatever. It really has significant impact for us as a commission to say, what do we want the park to look like in a year from now? A bike thoroughfare or a park, and that's the kind of direction that I would say. And I would stick to my comment about no motorized bikes. I would say the same thing about the motorized skateboards and the motorized scooters.
And just to comment on that, the rental companies can geofence areas where if they go in that area, it shuts off. And so we can geofence that. So for instance, on CMU's campus, there's areas that are geofenced. You can even geofence a speed limit if you want. So if you're in that area and you want the speed limit to be 5, they can make it only go 5 in that area until they're out. Or they can make it stop and shut it off.
Can we do that without need of adjusting the ordinance, or would we have to have the ordinance in place to tell them to geofence that area?
No, I think that's within our authority.
As like the
Yeah,
contract
I do.
person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Obviously, it's with rental companies. If Commissioner Eke owns her own electric scooter,
I don't.
she's not going to be geofenced.
She will not be
Category
contained.
1, don't worry, class 1. But Director Loria, I actually like what you're talking about. I walk the trails, and I mean, like Commissioner Alsega, I will ride, down the streets, until I get to Crawford, going towards Blanchard. I avoid, riding on the trails. And, this is also, it has serious implications for, I think, what you're talking about, the outlook of the park. But for me also, it connects to a particular concern in which people ride their bikes through Chippewa Waters Park into Vites Woods, and they cut across into, that whole section, which is, which in fact there is prohibition, of motorized, whatever it is, motorized vehicles in Viteswood. But people don't listen. The other day, about a week and a half ago, I was walking in Viteswood. I turned around, what did I see? Somebody with a bike about 10 inches big, right? I told you. And I didn't, I thought, should I go talk to this person? Because I've done that before and the person practically accosted me. But in this case, this person was walking the bike across because I turned around, looked at this person, wondered what is going on. All right, so the problem has to do, and the reason why I'm talking about this is that there is no monitoring of those, of the trails or, our parks to sort of stop people from riding their bikes in there. Well, if there are cameras, somewhere, and we assume that the cameras catch the people who are violating ordinances, are we doing anything about that? I don't even know about that. But the problem is implementation or enforcement. And if we're not going to enforce it, we already have an ordinance that exists, which we're not even enforcing anyway. To what extent are we going to then enforce this new one? I'm just simply saying, I think we need to make this not complicated. If I had a choice, it's absolutely no bikes on those trails, because that way everybody's safe, the dogs are safe, the kids are safe, I'm safe. Anybody who is walking down that pathway is safe. But if we can't go that way, then we need to be consistent. I want to be consistent with, what, at least the state of Michigan says certain vehicles, certain bikes cannot go through these trails. And then we stay with those and make sure that we enforce the one, what we already have, and that, again, there is signage there, and that these signs are visible so that people just simply don't, hurt or traumatize people. I can't tell you the number of times I've been traumatized by somebody riding, bike, and they don't tell you, they don't alert you that they're coming. You just turn around. Before you turn around, the bike is zapping past you,
Gotcha. Myself and everything, interested in seeing. I understand the desire to ban, like just a flat out ban on any powered vehicles or anything. I do, but I think that they're becoming more and more common in prevalence, and the idea of keeping them all out is difficult. So it's just looking for ways to, again, how do we manage them, like on the trail system? That's my personal thought there. I understand what you're saying and everything. Again, it's just difficult to, again, enforce that with 100% or, again, but
Well, it's like in the city, if you don't ride on the sidewalk if you're on a bicycle, or certainly not on a power bicycle, but you just, even if you did it, they said, get in the street, that's where you're supposed to be. There's other routes to go. And of course, the park was designed, that's why it's so important to me, because the park was designed as a
Foot
park.
traffic.
And if it's truly our intent, then we need to make sure that we're addressing that up front and say, this is what we'd like to do.
I would also remind the commission of this, that when you operate your bike in the roadway, you are, by law, you have to adhere to the rules of the road. And I never have, as a police officer, I haven't pushed a police car in a long time, but I don't ever recall stopping a bike for speeding. Now, I have recalled bicyclists on the roadway that I know were exceeding the speed limit. It's one of those things that pay attention when you drive around town and watch bicyclists on the road, and some of them will go right through a stop sign.
Yeah.
And again, you got to signal, you can't speed, you got to stop, yield, do all the same things a vehicle does. And I don't think we want to be a community where we're, stopping bicyclists. I think that's a PR nightmare, to be honest with you. But there's definitely times where our officers have stopped and said, hey, you got to stop at a stop sign. Oh, yeah, okay. But to say they've been written, I'm probably, I don't think it's happened in my time, but I could be wrong.
Well, it just sounds like we just need education again. We had education before when we had the bike race, when we did the safeties with the kids and stuff like that. And it just sounds like that's what we need. We need to up the education. I don't want to eliminate bikes from the park system, because I think that then we're saying that if you walk, you can use it, if you bike, you can't. And that's not fair to a lot of people around here.
I agree with that.
Gotcha. So it sounds like at the very least, you're updating language on ordinances to include definitions. So definitely proceeding with that. It sounds like there's interest in banning, it sounds like there's interest in what it would look like to flat out ban powered vehicles. So what would an ordinance look like if we wanted to proceed that way?
I'd just say no motorized vehicles.
I think we should keep, if our existing ordinance doesn't allow motorized vehicles, then people don't know that. Do people know about that?
I'd say on the other hand, it also sounds like there's interest, it sounds like there's a bit of a split decision.
Yeah, and I don't think our ordinance doesn't allow motorized vehicles. It says you can't go over 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, and there is a sign that is erected, signs that are erected that have, there's signs that are erected that say that.
Say what?
That's all I want to,
No
no motorized vehicles.
In
But it
Wrightswood, I
doesn't
see.
determine, it doesn't state what the motorized vehicle is.
Correct.
I can't drive my car down it.
No,
I mean, I could.
I mean,
Amy,
yeah.
Could.
Electric?
No, it's a motorized vehicle.
it's motorized vehicle.
It's all-wheel drive. I could drive down there.
Director Loria, you've heard.
There are signs there. I know them, but people don't pay attention to them. That's the
Because they
problem.
think of a motorized vehicle as being
As
something other
cars,
than
yes.
a
We need
bicycle
to
or a
clarify
scooter.
that.
Director Loria, you've received a bunch of different feedback in a bunch of different directions. Do you have information to work with, or would you like? Is there any points of clarification? Or
Yeah,
things
I
you'd like
do
to-
need to know, are we going to allow just class 1 on park paths?
I I'm fine, again,
fine
with
with
the
class
state of,
one.
Yeah,
because
I'm
it's
going with
in
class
compliance with
one.
the state of Michigan. Again, like, the state of
Okay.
Michigan is allowing,
Yep.
is if we maintain that consistency at the very least for people coming here and traveling here.
John, sounds like you're not in favor of that.
20 miles an hour.
No, we have 15.
No, it's,
Well, they
Most
can
of them don't
go,
even have speed limits, speedometers. And we can't put a fence around it, electric fence, because some of them are privately owned. And so, and some of them, they get young kids driving these things, fast is fun. But if we're saying that we want to have vehicles that'll go 20 miles an hour, and like I said, that's almost that wall to that wall in a second.
And is it, are you also saying no bicycles?
No, I think bicycles are good.
But,
A bicycle can go over 20 miles
Oh,
an hour.
yes, they can. But one with a motor makes it pretty darn easy to do it.
but
Oh.
we're saying,
I do out of town.
but we're saying that if we're consistent, okay, Director Laurie, I just want to make sure that I understand, I'm not losing myself here. The state of Michigan prohibits certain, allows Class A.
Class
right?
one.
Class 1, A.
Yep.
Well, A, B, C. Class 1. Class 2 and 3, no, okay. And within Class 1, you can go up to 20 miles, 20 miles an hour, up to 20 miles an hour.
and then once you hit 20, if you want to go 21 or 22, you have to pedal, it's all on you
Okay.
to do it.
Okay. Our speed internally within our community, ours goes up to 15 miles an hour. Am I clear? I'm trying to unravel this thing. That's too much. Okay, so all I'm saying, I think that first of all, we need to, but we also have, as a locality, we have, what is it? Am I looking? The discretion, to determine what speed limit okay, that's where I'm going with this. So I'm thinking that if the state says, only this particular class can go there, we stay with that class. I'm not adding new, I am not supportive of adding, classes 2 and 3. Okay, we're consistent with the state in terms of the class, but we stay with our speed limit as it already sits. That's where that's where I'm going with this. Forgive me, I have been awake since 2:30 a.m. So if my
the speed limit would remain consistent at 15 miles per hour,
yes,
but we would
stay
be,
with a class
Yeah.
from the state just to be consistent with that.
yeah. And at the very least of the three classes, we are limiting it to the most conservative of what might be considered the most conservative of the three classes.
Or safest, if you want to use I would think the most safe of the three classes.
Class 1, yeah, assisted while pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, but the speed limit would still be the 15 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that helps, but that's where my head is.
Commissioner Rollins, any feedback on this?
I think we should print at least some guidelines with the e-connections online and on Facebook so that we can, basically tell the general public, what's going on as far as who's allowed on the trails and what type of conveyance of transportation is allowed on the trails.
Gotcha.
I think it'd be a lot quicker than waiting for a special event. And at least we would get some public feedback at large to see if it actually works for them or not.
And then Commissioner Zhang, I know you have concerns and everything with allowing any powered vehicles still. I just want to acknowledge, as again, we're talking through this and
Yes,
everything,
I
just want to
include
acknowledge that. Yeah,
The scooters and the skateboards, yes.
gotcha.
Oh, you want to add them to
No,
that list?
when I said no motorized vehicles, that was included.
Okay.
Bicycles, they're an integral part of the trail system. You see them there now. But I'm saying no motorized vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Alsager talking about, again, maintaining the 15 miles per hour, but like if we were to do class 1 only through the trails, your thoughts on that?
I think I'm leaning towards agreeing with Commissioner Zhang, because if you have an electric bike, or me with my non-electric bike, you can always go on a city street. You don't need to be in a park.
Gotcha.
And maybe the speed limit could be 10 even for regular bikes, just to be mindful of the walkers, hikers, joggers, and joggers.
And then Commissioner Perschbacher, it sounds like, I think we're kind of on the same page on this one of class one and maintaining the speed limit 15 miles per hour, limiting it to class one bikes through the parks trails because, and open a can of worms. Director Loria, we, in this discussion, we are delineating between park trails and park trails, sidewalks, and roadways, correct?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
And there would be no speed limit on sidewalks, and they're allowed to be operated on sidewalks. It's kind of like you have to wear a seatbelt in the car, but if you're riding a motorcycle, you don't have to wear a helmet. Now, I'd probably get vegetables thrown at me for saying that. We want to make some logic out of it. So, I mean, if people are walking the paths, they got to walk on a sidewalk to get there. But we can leave it as is and just keep it to the paths. It's enough, or it's easy enough to call out.
Okay. Gotcha. In any case, yeah, it sounds. Sorry, working in this way, directing the ordinance is interesting. It sounds like there's interest, yeah, in addressing this further, focusing on class ones in the parks. Do you have information, like feedback to get a direction from us?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you. Save me from my stuttering and everything over here. Thank you.
Can I ask, just as part of this conversation, because I know we went around to the different commissioners. Mayor, what was your count on support for allowing level 1 bikes in the parks and on the trails versus banning them?
Yeah, in support, I believe I had at least 3. Commissioner Rollins was focused on education, so I think 4 in support of allowing class 1, and it sounded like, 4 Bush is out, so it sounds like about 2 is about what the count's at, opposing powered vehicles on trails.
Okay.
And so will probably guide our discussion as we move forward. So again, this isn't going to be the last time we have a work session on this. So again, if we get something that we don't like, and we can, again, continue to modify it as we have further discussions on this. I'm just looking at
a comment. Commissioner Rollins was a good comment to get our opinions about, or get the direction we're heading on our parks, to get that in front of people, because that way if they might want to comment to us.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Other questions from staff on this topic? Okay. All right. Thank you so very much. At this time, what time is it?
8:40 something.
8:40 something. It is 8:51. We are going to go into a 10-minute recess, let's say, before our, thank you, we need the vote on the closed session. Now, talking with Clerk Bauk prior, it sounds like we could do the motion to go into closed session as a single motion. If we basically state the motion in item 13, and then followed by go into closed session with item 15.
You want me to make the motion?
Yeah.
I can do that. I move that we move into closed session pursuant to subsection 8C of the Open Meetings Act for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement. And we're going to do that twice. And then we're going to have another closed session pursuant to subsection 8A of the Open Meetings Act.
Gotcha.
For the personnel evaluation of the city manager.
Gotcha. And for this, we'll need a roll call vote. Oh, is there a second?
Second.
There you go.
All right, and then roll call in support of the motion, Commissioner Perschbacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Zhang,
Yes?
Commissioner Alsteiger,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eke,
Yes.
and Mayor Wingard.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay. At 8:52, we're going to go into recess to clear the room, and then we will come back into closed session at 9:02 PM.
Just make it 9 Now I can eat this.
I'm saying 9:02.